Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy Devvon tomorrow, and welcome to another Help Me Devvon tutorial. And today, in this Help Me Devvon tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how to manipulate your 2-track loop like stems. I'm going to show you how to take that loop that you have right now that has all of these elements in it, and how to get a sound that feels separated and huge. Check this out. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you the loop that we have today. This is the loop, and then I'm going to play you our effect and what we did to it. So this is the loop. And this is what we turned it into. Now, if you have ears, you can clearly hear that we got so much more out of that one loop, one sound, to just fit the whole spectrum and just fill it up and give us a bass. And it's a wonderful trick, and I'm about to show you. Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe if you're enjoying this so far. Let's get to it. Okay, now I know a lot of you may know about certain technologies like Lala AI or those stem separators, but for me, I've found that I like the sound of this technique that I do here, as opposed to ripping it off from some random file and separating it. I kind of like this way a little better. It helps me to maintain things. It helps me to get a better feeling. Just a little tidbit for you guys that say, hey, I got an easy way. This is my way that I really find to be a lot more pleasing to my ear. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a technique of separation. Some people call it molting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one sound, which you can see right here. Check this out. And I'm going to separate it, which is this one loop, into 3 different sections. As you can see right here, I have main loop low. Then I have main loop mid, then I have main loop high. What I'm doing is I'm going to take that one sound, separate it into 3 different parts. I'm going to separate it into, this is the same loop, but only the lows. This is the same loop, but only the mids. And this is the same loop, but only the highs. It's going to give me a lot more control over the entire sound and allow me to process them very differently. And then blend those 3 sounds together to give me that full sound that you heard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through each loop as far as the low side of the loop, the mid side of the loop, and the high side of the loop. And I'm going to show you how I separated them with EQ, etc. It's a great trick. Check this out. Okay, cool. So first and foremost, let's go on over to the low side first. So right now we're going to manipulate the main loop low. Let's listen to what the main loop low sounds like by itself right now. So I'm only taking, or basically that particular sound is just the lows. How did I separate the lows? How did I get it to just be the lows? Well, what I did was I took an EQ and I rolled off everything from the top down to 300 hertz. So basically all I'm getting from that particular sound source is just 300 hertz. So I've separated this into 300 hertz, as you can see right here. Now what I'll do is I'll move on over to the mid side. And of course, I'm going to show you my processing, but I want to show you how I separated it. For the middle one, I moved it and I separated it at 300 hertz and 2000 hertz. So right now, what you're only hearing right here is between 300 hertz and 2000 hertz. And it sounds like this. So I did that using this EQ and basically filtering the top and the bottom to just give me some of that lows, the mids in this particular sound. Next one I've gone on over to is the highs. And the highs is very interesting. Check out what the highs sound like, and I want you to see my EQ. What I did was I rolled off everything from 2000 hertz and below. Take a listen to what it sounds like. So it's really just that sheen. It's just that top end of the sound. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I process each one in each section differently. So let's process the lows first. Okay, So at the very top of this section, you're going to see an MV2, which is an upward compressor and a traditional compressor as well. I love this compressor a lot because it allows me to bring up the nuances in the sound. I have a tutorial on upward compression. You can check it out. I'll leave a link in the description below. But basically what this low level section is going to be doing, which is what I'm using it for, is it's going to bring up the quieter stuff. Anything that's below the threshold, it's going to bring that up. This is the difference between regular compression, traditional compression, and upward compression. As opposed to attenuating, this is going to boost, but it's only going to boost things that fall below a certain threshold and bring it up. It's a really, really powerful technique. I highly recommend you guys trying this out for the most part. So the low level compressor, I have it boosting as far as the upward side so that it can bring out those nuances that I'm looking for. So I'm going to bypass everything that I have here except for what I'm rolling off. And let's take a listen. Let's A/B it and see what we brought up without first. And let me make sure I soloed it. Yes, without first. You can hear that a lot of the fullness and stuff like that is coming from that compressor, where it's bringing up those nuances of what's down there in that 300 hertz range. Now, I know for some of you may be saying, well, it feels like it's getting a little cluttered, but understand that I'm basically creating a bass out of a full sound. So I'm really just trying to beef it up and just give it some more pronounced and accent it so that it's stronger, so that I can now process it even more. I need it to be heard more so that when I have my processes down the line, that it can actually grab that stuff and add these little bells and whistles to it. So just know I added the upward compressor just to push up some of those nuances that are in that low level by itself. If I had the full sound, it would have been bringing up all kinds of different stuff, but this is just focusing on that low level, the low end of my sound, which is helping to basically give me a better and more overall bigger sound. So of course, as you can see on the second one, that was the lows that I cut as far as that was the highs that I cut so that it can give me only the lows below 300 hertz. Next thing I did was I added this compressor. And basically this compressor is going to just give me a little bit of compression and just kind of control just those parts that are just a little too loud and poking out for me. So check this out without first. So it's just doing a very, very subtle thing. It's not much. I just wanted to control those peaks just a little bit more, and that's what that compressor is doing. As you can see, I have a fairly fast attack and a medium to fast release to kind of smooth out that section as far as what I got coming in. Okay. Next thing I have going is, and a very significant part of this, is this CLA bass. And I love the CLA bass, and I like to use the subs function on a CLA bass. Let's check out what this did before and after. Please make sure you're using headphones or on your studio monitors, or else it may be a little difficult to hear this because this is sub information. Without first. You can hear that low end get more low end. It feels like it rumbles just a little bit more, and it's adding that subharmonic content to my sound as far as what I was looking for. I'm really getting a bass right now. I'm really getting more of that sound that I'm looking for as far as the lows in this loop is concerned. Okay, the next plugin is a doozy, and this plugin is Low Air. This is another subharmonic generator that I love. It's probably my favorite subharmonic generator for the most part. And check out what this does. Please use headphones or monitors without first. I mean, like, if I hope you're using headphones or something that can reproduce those frequencies, it adds such a power to that low end that I love. It's rumbling. It's making the lows lows. My favorite subharmonic generator. And now I really feel like I have something that is bass worthy in the out of the loop as far as I'm concerned. So basically my settings are, I approach the 60 hertz range. I don't add anything to the low air, but really the big secret is this low knob right here to actually add the lows, and I'm adding a fair amount. Now you got to be really careful with this generator. If you add a lot of this, it will eat up headroom like crazy. So you got to make sure and be mindful of how much of this you add to your actual signal. But it does some real damage and some real beautiful things to the low end if you're looking for that rumble. Okay, so now let's move on over to the mids. And basically with the mids, what we did is this. We look at this gain station, and this is the first thing that I use. This Pro MB, don't worry about this. This is some side chaining that I'm doing. Basically what I did with this is I'm pushing some of the side information out a little bit. So it's giving me a little bit more side information. I love this plugin from Mike Dean and Acoustica. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's from Acoustica. I'm going to show you a before and after. Check out what I did. And all I did was use the boost on the side function. I spread out the sides just a little bit. Check this out without first. And let me make sure I'm in the right place. Let's see. So for me, it gave it a little bit more of a stereo feel. It made it, pushed it out to the sides a little bit, or kind of opened it up a bit. Now, I believe that they designed this to be mono and stereo, but it also could be mid and side. What it's doing, I like. It feels like I'm getting more side information, which could be through actually giving it more sides, or it could be another process of basically just widening the sound. Whatever this thing is doing from a side standpoint or basically from a stereo imaging standpoint, I really enjoy the sound of it. It's a really powerful kind of trick, and this is something that I've kind of stumbled on as far as the gain station is concerned from Mike Dean and Acoustica. Really, really nice sound. It's adding some of that side information, making it feel a little bit more stereo and open. I love this plugin for that particular button right there. Next thing I got going on is the MV2. And basically with the MV2 is I have some bottom or low level compression going, again, some upward compression. Now I'm going to make sure that I engage my actual EQ as far as making sure it's only grabbing the mid as far as everything is concerned. And now what we're going to do is we're going to boost some of that low information right here. So check this out. So it just gave me a little bit more, just kind of gave me a little bit more oomph in the sound. I know you're also noticing that I'm adding the upward compressor before the EQ, which filters off all of that stuff. I didn't, or I was trying to stay away from it after. And only reason is because I felt like it was just picking up too much things. So with it being beforehand, it was still listening to the overall sound. And so I wanted to use it in a more subtle way as far as a low level. So that's why you're seeing me use it before and not after. If I do it after, it's like, okay, well, all I see is 300 hertz to 2000 hertz. So what's the low level here? You know, I wanted to grab some harmonics from the stuff as a in its totality and kind of give me that level beforehand. Just a little heads up, just in case you're just noticing that. So you see what it gave me. It just boosted it just a little bit on the on this side as far as giving me some upward compression, like I explained before. Now, the little scary thing that I did was there wasn't much of this information in the original sound as far as being boosted. It was very quiet in particular in this range. So what I did was I boosted this range so that I could, in an extreme way, so that I can bring more of that out in that particular sound. So check this out, before and after, without first. So that's a very obvious trick that I did. It's basically just giving me more of that particular range. I wanted more of that range. I wanted that range to feel more powerful, so I did that. If I had the entire signal there, then if I boosted, some other things would feel like they're boosted as well in the entire sound. So this is giving me more control over this mid being boosted so that I can decide how much I want to blend of that as opposed to having the entire full spectrum of the sound there. It's one of my favorite tricks as far as loops is concerned and as far as two tracks is concerned. Okay, so you can see I boosted the crap out of this. I boosted about 60 dB here because I'm not scared because I know I'm going to blend this in to taste with the overall sound. Next thing I added was this compressor. It's doing basically the same thing it was doing on the lows, which is just giving me just keeping things in control and just kind of grabbing a few peaks that I felt like was poking out. Check it out without first. So it's really helping me with those swell moments and kind of keeping that stuff in control, which is something I was having a little bit of trouble with when it comes to boosting things like the mid range. Got to be really careful because that stuff I don't want to clutter up with my vocals. So I wanted to make sure I kept it controlled, although I was boosting it a lot for it to be heard and felt more. So just control. As you can see, I have a pretty fast attack just to grab those peaks and a medium to fast release to kind of smooth it out and keep it in control. Now, the last part of this is it's going to be the high end. And basically what I did with the high end was I rolled off at the 2000 hertz range, like you see. And then I did the same thing with the gain station, where basically I just added some stereo width to the actual sound. So before and after, without first. It's very subtle and the sound is very quiet off the strength of we are rolling off so much of that low end. So it's very hard to hear. But what we're going to do is I'm now going to bring in the MV2, which is my low level compressor, and I'm going to bring this particular stuff up. Now with the highs, I wasn't scared to put it after because I really need the highs to be heard because there's not much there in the first place. So I'm going to use the MV2 to bring up that high end information without first. So as you can see, I'm using the low level side, but I'm also using the high level side, which is a traditional compressor to really bring up and bring out the level in this entire sound because it's not a lot there and I needed it to be felt and heard. So basically I used this traditional compressor, brought it down and it brought out the nuances. Check it out. I'll give you an example so you can get an idea of what this high level compressor is doing. I'll put it at the 0 and then I'll bring it down. Check it out. I mean, this thing is so dangerous. This thing is amazing, and this is why I use it all the time for when it comes to just parallel compression, as well as things like this, bringing out nuances and things like that. MV2 is super underrated compressor. Okay, the next thing I have here is another compressor, but this compressor, literally, all I did was raise the volume. I literally could have used a trim plugin, but I decided to just go with one of my compressors, had it copy and paste it, and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna boost some of that volume on this thing. So check this out, it's just a volume boost without. So I boosted the volume, but I'm also getting a little bit of compression just to control those swells. Once again, just getting some control on it over it because now I boosted it so much, and now I'm just kind of catching some of those peaks to kind of calm them down so it's not like it's too much in my mix. As you can see, again, fast attack, a slower release because I want those highs to be smoother. If you're looking for something to feel smoother with compression, try slowing down the release and you'll notice that it'll feel a little bit smoother. The next thing I did was, and this is a secret little weapon for me, is this PS22 split plugin from Waves, which I feel like people don't talk about this plugin enough. It's really good for spreading out information in your stereo image. So without first, a wonderful trick for taking that high-end information and just kind of spreading it out into this wonderful space away from everything else. Now you have this one cohesive sound when your listeners listening to it where it feels like there's width at the high, the mid is very centered or basically the mid is where it's supposed to be, and then the lows just feel tight and right where they belong as far as the frequency spectrum, because they've all been processed very, very different. Super amazing trick. The very last thing that I want to show you is just a safety precaution, and this is just me rolling off from 10,000 hertz and above. I just wanted to roll off some of that high end up there because I didn't want that stuff up there. I didn't like the sound of it. I feel like it was adding a little too much air, and I wanted to kind of focus that high end a bit. So I wanted rolling off some of that there. Now, I lied to you. There's one last thing that's super important to this trick that I need to show you, and that is this. With each sound, I added some parallel compression, meaning from the copies of the mults that I've created already, I wind up taking a copy of that copy, meaning I copy a copy of the lows, squashing it to death and blending that in with the low to give it more oomph. I'm going to show you what I mean. Now, here is the parallel chain connected to each one. So there's a parallel chain connected to each one. I wound up not using it for the highs because I felt like the highs were fine, but I wound up using a parallel chain for the lows and the mids. So let's check out the parallel chain for our lows. I'm gonna bypass it back and forth. Check this out, without first. You can hear clearly that I get more strength and power and oomph out of this entire sound with just adding a little bit of parallel compression under there. Now, you guessed it, I used the MV2 to give me that parallel compression, and what I did was I squashed the mess out of it, doing a bunch of upward compression with adding this, and then doing regular traditional compression with adding the high level and bringing that down. So it gives me that entire sound. Now, one last time, let's just hear our final and completed sound. Granted, remember, I did a parallel process for this, as well as the mids, and none to the highs. I left the highs alone because I didn't feel like it needed it. So let's hear our entire full spectrum sound versus the old sound, and let's see where we landed. So let's put this here. This is the old sound. And this is the new sound. A powerful trick. Of course, I also added some other parallel saturation as well to the entire sound, which I'll show you in another video. But for the most part, that is the core of what I did to accomplish that sound that you heard. A bigger, more full, and just stronger sounding loop that I got way more out of, and also widened, but also added that low end that it was screaming for in my sound. So I hope that was helpful. Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us at Help Me Devvon on Instagram. Also, make sure you go to helpmedevvon.com and get that HMD Rosetta EQ, as well as listen to the My Audio Nerds podcast every single Wednesday. I'll leave a link in the description below for that as well. I hope that was helpful. Please join our Discord community as well. Link in the description. Until next time, you guys.